Thanks, everybody. You know, I think it's kind of silly that everybody thinks that we're rivals. We have done a lot of drinking together over the years. I'm just going to put it out there. But since I have the pleasure of having friends at all of the television stations since I've made my rounds at all of them over the years. Everybody said, well, why didn't you leave town? I said, hey, I found the best place in the world to live. I just had a better deal around, you know, the zip code, that's all. But anyway, when Kim, oh my gosh, who knows Kim here? Okay, before I get started on my stories, I have to tell you, it is very difficult to say no to this woman. I am telling you that if she worked for the IRS, we could cure the deficit. She would collect from everybody. But I say that with love and affection. I have been the proud recipient of her holiday cards for at least the past 20 years, and they get more creative and wonderful every single year. And that tells you a bit about her personality. Colorful, artful, caring, and gives of herself. And before I get started, I just wanted everybody to know what energy she put into this night. So please give her a big round of applause. And I love Joe. We see each other out on the street and start counting down the days to when nobody ever retires these days. Forget about that. But anyway, my theme tonight, they said, well, what do you want to talk about? And I thought, well, the easiest thing to talk about is some of the interesting travels you've had over the years or interesting experiences, and wrap it all up and make it 10 minutes. But I think one of the things that I love talking about are the influential women in my life, and that's my mother and my grandmother. Now, my dad made me an incredible Steelers fan. I am unbelievable. Thank you so much. Somebody's still out there. Somebody's trying to twist my arm to root for the Ravens tomorrow. Okay. But let me just say, so many layers. My grandmother used to say that children are like lumps of clay because everyone who touches the child leaves an impression. And that was the first quote that I remembered from her that really had value as the years went by. But another thing, one of my first memories was my grandmother Roberta, who came from the deep South in Georgia. And if any of you have deep Southern roots, you'll know what I mean by, you know, women who used to chew. Really? Well, anyway, Grandma always wanted a kiss right after she had a chew. And you know, you're trying your best to get away from Grandma, you know, right after the spatooey. But she just loved up on you anyway. And she would sit you down and tell you a story. And we kind of called them stories of life because she really was trying to teach you a lesson by sitting you down and telling you some of these stories. One of the stories she told me, a story about a man who bought some land in a floodplain, and he knew that if he built the house there, sooner or later it would flood, but it was cheap. He thought it was a good deal. He built the house anyway. And of course, as fate would have it, along came the floods. Now, the reason why she was telling me this story at that particular time is I was, you know, I was 13. And I will tell you what 13 was for me. At 5 years old, my mother, my grandmother, and my father, they were the smartest people in the world. They knew everything. But by the time I got to be 13, I was surprised they could walk upright on 2 legs. They were so dumb. So Grandma wanted to tell me a story that would hopefully teach me something about life. So she told me about the guy who built the house on the floodplain, and along came the floods. And so the water started rising, and he went up to the 2nd floor and he hung out the window, and along came a rowboat from a neighbor, and the neighbor said, listen, man, you better jump on in. If you don't get in, you'll surely die. He said, no, I'm a man of God, and God's gonna save me. Well, the waters rushed around the house even higher, and he goes up to the 3rd floor and he hangs out the window, and along comes the rescue boat, and they said, listen, fella, you better jump in now, or else you will surely die. And he says, no, I'm a man of God, and God's gonna save me. Well, the waters got even higher, and he just climbed up to the roof, and he's clinging on. He's clinging on, and along comes a chopper, and no, it's not News Chopper 3, but they drop a ladder. Sorry, Joe. They drop a ladder, and he said, listen, climb up now, or else you'll surely die. He says, no, I'm a man of God. Well, the man died, and boy, was he pissed. He couldn't wait to get an appointment with the Almighty. So he stood in line, much like you did for the buffet tonight. He stood in line, and he waited and waited and waited until he had an audience with the Almighty, and he went up, and he was trying to be a bit respectful, and he said, Heavenly Father, I have followed your teachings all my life, and you let me die. God looked at him and he said, well, fool, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. What more do you want? And so my mother said, and my grandmother said, sometimes the help that you need in life is right there in front of your face. Sometimes that person you need is right there and you just don't see them. And I think that this is a lesson that many of the ForKids volunteers know for sure. Because sometimes we have wounded little people who just need a hug, and they just need your patience, and they just need your indulgence so that they'll see 2 boats and a helicopter coming at them. But you know, it didn't end there because, of course, if it was just one story you could tell a kid and everything gets upright, it wouldn't be called parenting.